So today we're going to talk about some international SEO and translation in that regards as well. Some people want to use href lang. There's lots of different ways to work with the language part of it, and it becomes about localization and some other factors that we're going to talk about. We're also going to talk about the hosting of a website, the role that it plays in that local index. And what was the third point? Well, I guess we'll get to it here soon. So let's get started by talking about translation and considerations for international SEO. And let's start with Sante. What are your thoughts on translation in SEO?
Well, first of all, good afternoon to those of you on that side of the pond, and good evening to the rest who are on this side.
Yeah, I guess I should have introduced some people first. My bad. I was.
It's all right. I'm Sante from Italy.
Yeah.
I'm looking down here. I'm writing as I speak, so that's why I'm not always looking into the camera.
Sante, I'm just going to quickly introduce people here.
Okay.
Okay. So this is Sante. Next to Sante is Jonathan Schakowsky from Germany, who's also works with the Browseo, great browser for looking at the structure of a website. And beside him is Gabriella Senino from Level 343. She works with a lot of translation and in the social media side of things. And next to Gabriella is Doc Sheldon, hailing from Mexico, speaking the Spanish, and Doc writes in many languages. And right now you're working in what, 5 or 6 countries, Doc?
Off and on, not all at once. I'm doing most of my stuff is in English, but we do some stuff in Latin America.
Okay.
But most of my business is in Australia, U.S., and U.K.
Yeah. And then we have Wissam Van Dan, hailing out of Florida, but he's originally from the Lebanon. And his expertise is in the Middle East, where you have different character sets, even more issues to deal with because language is quite a bit different. Actually, we talked about that in the Hangout the other day, how Spanish and Italian and French and all those are kind of derived from Latin. So there's a lot of roots and stuff that go through all the languages. And of course, I could not forget about my sidekick, Steve Garancher, is he's my sidekick on several things that we're doing. He's on the regulator in Czech. I say black, he says white.
That's only because you're wrong.
I'm wrong all the time. That's right, Steve. Okay, so let's get started with translation. Now, I know that Doc and Gabs and Sante have worked on a few projects together where there were several languages.
Including Wisdom.
Yeah, and Wisdom, too.
Yeah.
So let's go over first what we kind of talked about the other day, and that was how localization. And let's start with Sante, because he kind of started that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to be careful on not making the mistake of identifying a translation with let's say, a proper localization, as Terry mentioned, because localizing has much deeper implications. So the first thing you want to make sure is that the person that is translating is not only fluent in speaking the language, but has at least some familiarity with, let's say, the local lingo, or with the culture, with the customs, with the trends. Otherwise, when somebody from that country is going to read that copy, it's going to look artificial. It's going to look dry. It's going to look unnatural, and it may even be off target, because they may be doing the translation without keeping an eye out on say, relevant keywords, which is an issue that may come up if you have an agency which is focused on doing translations. That often is the case. I've seen that happen many times. Another thing you absolutely, I would suggest not to do, and I would discourage, is to put up the little flags on the site where you leave it to Google to do the translation, because normally Google does a terrible job at translating, and it looks quite funny and sounds ridiculous as well. So I think these are just a few macro areas that you certainly want to keep on the radar as the basic, as the fundamentals. Maybe Gabriela or someone else would like to, go on and elaborate a bit more on that.
Yeah, Gabriela, when we were talking yesterday, you mentioned quickly that you have to kind of watch how people talk in certain areas is different, and things can mean different things to different people in different parts of the country, even.
Exactly. And let me just send out this tweet. But excuse me, culture comes into play, and that's real important. Nuances. I mean, when you just consider English, just the English language, how many variations there are in calling a boot versus a trunk versus I don't know what they call it in Australia. So not just direct translations, because sometimes direct translations get you in trouble too. For example, I think one of the things we discussed or I mentioned was we had a client come to us with some copy that they had gotten translated, and the translation was perfectly fine. But some of the keywords they were using, which was Black Friday, in the US, it's a well-known holiday for selling and for huge e-commerce business, but yet when you translate it literally into French, it becomes something of a political strife for that country. So, these things, it doesn't just take translation, it takes people that are local, people that understand the nuances, people that understand that language. So those are some things really that are important to watch for.
Yeah, I agree. Doc, you have anything to add as far as localization and that sort of thing? Yeah, you need to unmute your mic there, Doc.
Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, the points that Sanjay and Gabs make are valid, because there are some significant differences in keywords. One of the things that I see a lot in the Latin American market is that some phrases that you might be, let's say you're dealing with an English site and you're trying to translate it over into Spanish for Mexico or South America or Spain. Some phrases, the locals will actually use the English phrase rather than the translation. No example comes to mind, but I see it a lot. And so what I'll do in the copy is I'll normally put both the Spanish translation and the English, so that the reader can relatively quickly understand what I'm talking about, and hopefully that the search engine will correlate it. Okay. Uh, that's basically it in terms of translation. It doesn't work. Certainly, you can't use something like Google Translate, like Sensei said. That'll just kill you. But
Right.
it doesn't work to simply translate. You've got to get some local feel for the idiom and the culture, because a phrase that works really well in Mexico can get me in trouble in Spain, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So just stuffing your content into Google Translate is probably a bad idea.
That would be a bad idea, yeah.
Or the old Alta Vista Babelfish, wasn't it? It was called, Steve?
Yeah.
You know, though Google Translate's fine for a word, to know what a word means, but once you get into a phrase or an entire sentence, it's pretty much garbage.
Yeah, I found I have a friend in Latin American. I found it has a real problem with male and gender, and like sometimes I think she's talking about me and she's talking about herself. That can be good or bad. And Wissam had a good example as well from the from Arabic English. Cellulite, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, basically we're, if all the other languages, Arabic is not included in them, is based on Latin. So when you go and translate, an English word to in Arabic, you have to transliterate, and there's a lot of big problem transliteration of that specific either cell, because there's no people don't use the right Arabic word of satellite. They just transliterate it, and this is how they search. So you have to, based on the data, you have to see what if it's actual satellite in Arabic, that's what people search, or they use the actual medical translation. That's specific. Yeah.
The English term. Yeah, we get that a lot. When I lived in Quebec, I noticed that half of their words were English. And because they're so influenced by the English, well, not half, but a lot of their words, like anything that would be like social, like they would just call, beer was beer. It wasn't, and that sort of thing. It was, they just use the English terms. I think there's a lot more of that with social stuff, like culture things that are adopted in other countries by, English culture adopted by other countries. Jonathan, what's your experience with that sort of thing? And you must work with a lot of European companies, not just Europe, right?
Yeah, that's right. And for me, like one of the things that everyone else has also said that's quite clear is that writing copy for a website in another country is not merely a translation. Like translating copy that you have in English, or in my case in German, is not enough. So those typical kind of international SEO agencies that just offer content in every language on the planet for every country somehow. Like if I was a client looking for service like that, I would not want that. I would want partners, in each country handling that, right. Probably.
And that's something that I've always believed too, and that was part of the inspiration for SEO Pros, was where a big company could come there and see SEOs from many countries. And here's my thinking on that a local SEO has information that a guy who's just looking at data doesn't have, because it's not just desktop search anymore, it's mobile, it's all these devices, and that is changing how people use the internet. So you've got to know more about, do the people in this area, are they using Yelp or are they using something else instead? And only someone local would know that. Like in Toronto, I know the major directories because those are the ones I see people using. Anybody else have any comments on that? Or
well, definitely. I mean, every country has their own. Okay, we all have Facebook and Twitter and now Google Plus. But I think other than that, every country and every place have their own opportunities also to engage with people and to, get known and so on. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that local guy does give you the insight into what's going on there locally. The other thing
sorry, Terry. No, just to elaborate a bit on that, the devices are also a matter of a very, very local flavor. So, like we mentioned, people in Italy, there are, I think, an average of 3 mobile phones per person in the country. So everybody is always on a mobile, and they'll shift from the mobile in the morning to the desktop during the day at work, and then many are now also migrating to a tablet in the evening that's with them doing talk shows, and so people are constantly wired, and that's something that is very, very dependent on the habits and the culture and the technological inclination of people based from country to country.
Yes, and would you know that if you weren't there?
Yeah, of course not.
I have this thought that people that just look at numbers forget that search engines and the things that generate those numbers don't actually buy things.
You can. I've seen copy written by agencies in that lack this. Can I say this the substrata of culture, and they're missing a bit of flavor. Missing a bit of salt, let's say, in the whole the way things are translated. Also on softwares, I've seen that, for example. That's another issue, because software is also it's also quite challenging software. It's a bit off topic, but if you do any kind of localization on a web, software applications, etc., you see that quite often.
Yes, we also have to remember that Google is very personal. I was looking through a client's Google Analytics the other day, and I went back a few years and looked at the traffic that they were getting, the geographic distribution. Wow. When you start looking at geographic distribution, you really see how Google has changed and that's the direct result of personalization. Anybody have any comments on that? Don't all speak at once.
I'm down here. I've been doing a few projects down in South America, and I see a lot down there. For instance, in Argentina, I see a lot of traffic coming in from all over South America, and even some from Mexico. In Brazil, I don't see much of anything except Brazil. I think it's going to vary geographically, but I would think that in Europe, and Sante and Gabs can probably speak more to this. I would assume that in Europe you'd see a lot more spread in your geographic audience.
Oh, absolutely. As Sante had mentioned, but mobile to deal with, and that is huge. So already you're looking at a different search criteria within mobile. Italy, France, Spain, Germany. I'm sure. When I was there last, everybody was carrying 2, 3 phones.
I see a lot down there. For instance, in Argentina, I see a lot of traffic coming in from all over South America.
Yeah.
And even somebody needs to turn off their video that they're listening to. I don't see much of anything except Brazil.
Yeah, it started playing somewhere else.
I would like to add also something that I saw a lot in the Middle East regions, not typically in Lebanon or UAE or even Amman, Jordan, but in areas like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, which they have the most share of people searching in Arabic, you find that the maturity of the people, the maturity with their internet, with the web, with everything is very. I mean, you're talking, for example, if you compare them to it's like 2002, 2003 over here in the States, you know, the internet didn't actually arrive there like after 4 or 5 years to these countries over there. So, in the price of having this kind of service was very, very expensive at first. So it delayed how. You know, from young people to even the adults to access this kind of the web and all that. I mean, even if you think about it, when I think one of the Google forums they did in Jordan, they had, for example, they said with all the data we have in Arabic and the content we have in Arabic, only 3% of it is unique content. So it tells you a lot about how that specific, let's say, only language is suffering a lot from this you know, immaturity.
One guy's writing it all, Wiz?
Huh?
One guy writes all the content in Arabic?
well, actually,
It's probably all Wissam.
yeah. My friends. No, but what's happening is you have probably 2 or unique sources in all the other just copy paste. The landscape over there is eaten by forums, which basically, you know, the V-Bulletin forums and all that. It's eaten by, and all you see is just copy pasting left and right.
So they're still forum based. There's not much social activity yet, Wiz?
I mean, lately, let me tell you, with the last probably year or year and a half, a lot of entrepreneurs start building this kind of platform, but still there's a lot of kind of like the audience is kind of, it's like still new to them. They don't understand how to react with it, or even they like to be anonymous. They can't go and push and go interact with the brand or go full board with the brand at all. So there's a lot of difficulties of what can you apply to the English side or the, you know, either United States or UK or even Canada, where you can apply it and stuff you see, you know, that works, and whatever you apply over there in that region over there.
You look like you're broadcasting from a prison.
Almost.
Anyhow, one of the things that we talked about, and Dave and I were actually in a discussion on another program with another SEO, and we got into it pretty good about whether you actually had to have a local presence. In other words, if I want to be in say UK, I'm going to build a UK presence there. I'm going to let Google know that by registering it in Webmaster Tools. And here's the thing that really got me is when I mentioned that Google seems to try and make, say, for instance, if you're in Canada, they try and make me use google.ca. When you're in Italy, they try and make you use google.it. Any comments from you other people in regards to that?
The same down here. I have to keep a link to the English version of Google on my speed dial because it tries to force me to the com.mx all the time.
Right.
Yeah, it does that, and depending on the browser that you use, You may also have to change the language because Google is forcing a language onto you. So I use an English browser most of the times, and I get mixed results. I go onto the .com, and I'm for results of a language set in an English language set. Sorry, an Italian language set are forced onto me, or vice versa, and the set is considerably different. That's
right.
a
Even
fact.
when you're on the .com,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, even when you're on the .com. That's my experience. Jonathan, you too.
Yeah, and yeah, it isn't. I don't know. I can't remember like when they changed that. It used to be different. It used to be that I went to google.de and I had a link on the bottom that said go to google.com in English,
right,
or vice versa, and that was always work. But nowadays, especially when I'm logged in, I have to change all kinds of things. I use some browser extension to handle that. But by default, I can.
Sorry, in the old days, you could just /NCR and go onto the .com. It's not as effective as it used to be, and there's a bit of confusion with the languages.
Yeah, I used to be able to set in the preferences .com because I don't use a .ca much, only when I'm looking for local. And back when personalization came in, that disappeared or didn't seem to work as it used to. So now I just have to, I keep my .com in Chrome, and I keep the .ca comes up in another browser. That's how I kind of handle it. But the local providers, I've always found there is a bit of a advantage to having that local presence. In other words, hosting in the country where you're trying to rank. And basically, you shouldn't say country. What you really should say is index that you're trying to rank to. Any comments on that?
I don't think hosting in terms of IP is such a strong signal, as strong a signal as it used to be. I think the strongest signal, the signal that has really taken over now is the top level domain. In fact, if you're on a .it, it's extremely difficult, not to say close to impossible, to rank on google.com. And probably others can share their experience on this. Mine at least is that you really don't have a leg to stand on if even if you have a great site and it's popular and it's got everything straight and great links coming into it. You're going to have it's going to be a real challenge to rank on google.com with an extension that is not a .com or a .co.uk.
Yeah, I've seen Canadian sites and Australian sites in there, but I will admit UK does seem to be more prevalent. But I think with Italian, it's more about that index being mostly in Italian, so there aren't very highly ranked English documents in that set, so just don't get included.
I mean, in generally in regards to local hosting, like Santa said, if I'm trying to rank in Germany and I'm building up a new site, I'll just use a .de domain, and I will naturally usually host it here, but I could probably even host it on a US server since they're cheaper, and get away with that, even though bandwidth is a problem. Those sites are usually slower.
I think I agree totally with Jonathan. Is basically I think of it that you have other sources to point your locality.
Yeah.
But the server, the hosting will basically, I tied it with where my audience is. If they're located in Germany, then better to have the hosting for latency and all that close to them, so they can have faster experience with their site. I'm not gonna host my website in the United States and all the audience is located in let's say China.
Yeah, so I think it's not so much about the ranking signal or anything like that. It's more about speed. Today it's still an issue somehow. Like lots of US sites for me browse from here are really slow.
100% agree.
Okay, so hey Steve, you look bored.
Not bored at all.
No? You have any
Playing Angry
questions?
Birds.
You have any questions today, or are you just taking it all in?
I'm absorbing because usually when it comes to international, I talk to one of these people anyway.
That's true. That's one of the advantages of the room. There's people
When you
all
live
over
in
the
this,
world in
when you
there.
live in the center of Tennessee, we don't do much international. Unless it's the House of
Speaking
Pancakes.
of, one of the clients that we worked on, there was Doc, there was Sante, there was Wissam, we had a German, and we also had Japanese, Chinese. So yeah, if I didn't know these guys, I'm not sure we could have gotten that contract done. But it's really important to get the local, the real deal. The 10-year-old Scotch instead of the over-the-counter. So, oh, Doc is gone. What happened?
Oh,
there
he's back now.
I'm back.
So, if the hosting doesn't really matter, it's more about the TLD. Are we hooking up the webmaster tools with that TLD to kind of let them know that this is my target audience for this site?
That's done automatically. So if I verify a .de domain, for example, I won't even have a choice to set a different geographic target like I have with a .com or a .net.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. See, there's my ignorance. I didn't know that. I've never.
I'm not sure about .ca. So
I've only done the North American or the web stuff, org, net, and CA.
Yeah, with all of those, of course, we have the choice. Yeah, we don't have the choice.
Yeah.
We do have a question from the chat area.
Cool.
Hacienda Rustica wants to know how they can avoid having another country see their website if they want to block certain countries from their website.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good wow.
Yeah.
That's actually, you do that with IP blocking, right at the router, I would think would be the best.
IP referral blocking?
There could be, yeah, well, I know this is something we've done in the past with up-and-coming areas of the world where spam and low-quality traffic can come from, and a lot of that kind of things we've blocked from based by IP range. You can do it at the router level, which is preferred, but you can also do it in your HT access, which can keep a certain, for whatever, if your customer base is not, Mongolia, but you seem to have a staggering amount of Mongolian traffic for some reason, then perhaps you do want to look at blocking them, especially if you don't have a product or a service that could help them. They become a resource drain rather than
Yeah, and I hope his website is not Chinese and he's trying to block the US IPs coming in.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the local strategies that y'all are using? Do you use local people to get the links, or how do you do that stuff? Links and get intel on the specific regions where you're at, or trying to get visibility. Anyone care to take that question?
In my situation, I just happen to have a great network of people. Plus, in-house level 343, we already handle 6 different languages. So again, depending on what countries have to be tapped into, if it's going to involve any kind of social, that's real important. I think one of the things we discussed is the flavor of human behavior and social in different countries. It could be the same block of continent, which is Europe, and you've got 20 different ways that one advertiser will try to sell to different niches. One of the funny things is in Italy we have Carosello, which we haven't had for years, and they tried coming back, which is a certain type of advertising. And here it would probably be laughed at. Personally, I grew up with it and I miss it. So, and again, when you bring that into how each country is going to use not just SEO, but content, social, social footprints from LinkedIn to Facebook to Twitter. Hello, you've got your hands full. So if you don't have, those partners and those elements covered, it's tough. It's tough, but that's one of the reasons it's important to have that network. And again, like I said, I've worked with quite a few of the people here today. Be working with them again because it's the network that you hook up to.
Yeah. I'm wondering when you're. I can't think of. I just forgot the question I was going to ask. Anybody else have a question? Sorry, I'm having a migraine, or so I don't know what it is. My mind is blank. Some would say that's a constant state, but that's besides. What do you think? I was trying to talk about this earlier. The impact of personalization on search, and even more so this, because to me, the local search seems to be becoming more and more prevalent in results. Is that the same in Europe? And also, that would go into also the fact that the algorithms seem to lag in other countries.
Oh, definitely. I mean, all those updates that we read about everywhere and hear about everywhere. We can take our time preparing, for when they hit us here, because the rest of the world always lags behind, which in this case, is good for us, because we can observe what you guys are doing and learn from you, and then be well prepared when it hits. So that's right. It's sometimes frustrating because we don't get to play with new features. Whatever it is, they're usually late too. But it also means that the bad stuff happens late too, which is then difficult.
One recurring thing, Jonathan, that I've heard is that spam is much harder, much more prevalent in other places other than the U.S. and North American index. Let's call it that.
I was talking to earlier in a different chat. I was talking to John about it, that I'm based in Germany and he's working out of Germany too, and he said that I asked him, are you doing any business in Germany as well since you're living here? And he was like, no, I looked at what they're doing there, and I decided I don't want to be part of that. And I kind of feel the same way sometimes, that like Germany has a huge SEO scene with lots of big agencies and so on, like quite a lot, especially the places where we are. But yeah, I don't know how it is in the US, or in other parts of the world. But here, kind of, I'm not too proud of what people are doing. But I guess it's the same everywhere. In some industries you can get away with it, in others you can't. If you look at SEO agencies, link profiles. Like, I don't even know what to say anymore. Like, I don't know how they can get away with it. So for some reason they can. But I don't know if that's region specific or specific to countries or areas. I guess spam happens everywhere.
If they're paying attention to what's going on in the United States, they're going to find out that sins of the past will come back to haunt you even 10 years later.
For sure.
Exactly.
Just takes a little bit longer. Sante, were you done, Steve?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sante, I know you look at that stuff a lot.
There are people who are still selling guaranteed placement in the organic. It's still around. There's a lot of sleazy work that's there, but on one side, on the other side, you have people who are doing it, let's say, the right way. So I think it's as they say, tutto mondo è un paese. Gabriella knows what I'm saying here. I mean, you have the good and the bad. So I wouldn't think that things are particularly skewed in one direction. Maybe in some Eastern European countries there might be a bit of a tendency to have a major concentration of certain ways of doing things, but I'm not too familiar with that, so don't quote me on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I can speak for the Chinese market. It's completely, well, but then again, you're not dealing with Google. So, but there's still a huge amount of catching up to 2013, if you will, in some countries. Whether it's Google's holding out on the new products, or whether it's the way different social connections are happening in different countries. So you've got to take all of that into consideration. But yeah, Italy has gotten better, much better, and that's thanks to education and to places like Google Hangout. Not to give Google any credit, but for allowing people to actually see how the rest of the world is dealing with.
And you must see in China a lot of mobile usage, eh?
Huge mobile.
Because you have the fact probably the bandwidth is pretty expensive there, and computers are probably out of reach for a lot of people too.
Yeah, but then you still have huge amount of users over there. So and you've got the Mandarin, and you've got the now of course I've gone blank. I don't know what the other Chinese is. And again, culture search. You always go back to human behavior. After all, that's who buys from you. It's people. It's not search engine. Period.
Right. Yeah. The mantra.
Yeah. I mean, hello.
I think there are a couple of things that we might want to add before we start to wrapping it up. Maybe.
Sure.
One of them is the user interface. In other words, what we like is not necessarily what other people like, what other cultures find appealing. If we go back to China, just to take it back from what Gabriella had mentioned, their idea of a cool website is completely different from what we like. And another thing that to get back to the copy side of things, the way your copy is written, not only let's say from the keywords and the way it's laid out and how it's localized, but also the approach has to be modulated depending on the countries. And I'm sure all of you might have a word to say on that.
They read right to left instead of left to right too, right?
Yeah.
That must make a difference in the eye stuff. Eh? Have you seen any work on that?
I have not seen any work on that. I have witnessed in a few conferences some layouts that I found baffling, a bit for the language, but also for the different arrangements, the combinations of the colors, and just all of the bells and whistles flashing that would normally turn off
Right.
most of the users.
They really like the 1990s websites, eh, Sante?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, it sounds like that.
Geocities specials.
Geocities was apparently sold to Ape.
Well, Geocities was bought by Yahoo a long time ago for about 100 times what it was worth. I actually remember when that happened. That was a long time ago. Anyhow, just trying to think here what we didn't cover. I'm still wondering about the content. There's a translation of the content, but the types of content, do you think, for instance, you were talking about China there, they probably prefer more video and imagery than, say, North America?
Well, you've got to understand when you're putting content together, you got to understand the sustainability of that content. Excuse me, I could not say that word. And that's the struggle, I think, at least with writing content for different countries. Not only do you have to understand the nuances and what to write about, but people are getting smarter. They're no longer being wowed by just good content. Because guess what? They don't care about you. They don't care about your company. They don't care about your product unless it matters to them. So you've got to understand that market, and the way to write content is no longer just stuffing keywords. Even though maybe in China it's still in some niche markets it's still very much a big push that I've been dealing with and having to again educate. That's not the way to go, because eventually Yadu or whatever their search engine is, I can't think of the name, they're going to catch up to it too. They're going to start tweaking their algorithms. So, but in some cases it still works. So yeah.
Okay. No questions coming in? Running out of topics here, I think. Anybody else have question or?
I mean, there's a couple of things pertaining to regional SEO or international SEO, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. This you mentioned that in the beginning, Terry, the href lang equals X, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's because I find it very interesting because we do a lot of e-commerce. And especially for e-commerce clients, it seems to be a problem that, for example, they're running a store in Germany, and in Switzerland, and in Austria. All three countries, speak German. So in the German SERPs, all of a sudden you'll see results from their Swiss website pop up, or from the Austrian website pop up. That can be a problem. Yeah, because sometimes you have different prices in different regions, and it's just you want the German searcher to end up on your German store so they can buy your products, and when they land on a Swiss site, they might be confused.
Right, and with the privacy stuff there, that must make that even harder to figure out, eh?
What do you mean?
Well, don't they hide their IP addresses and stuff?
You mean people who are searching?
Yeah. Like how do you know when they come in, if they're from Germany, you can redirect them to the German site, but that doesn't always work because they might not be in Germany.
Right. Yeah, you can like redirects are usually not recommended. What we've done with a recent client was that when somebody from Germany lands on the Swiss site, they get kind of a light box or pop-up or whatever, and it tells them, look, it seems like you're from Germany. If you want, you can switch to the German site here. So that helps if you can't avoid having results from the wrong country show up. But in order to go one step back and help people to rank in the right country, Google has introduced this href lang thingy, which can be included either in the head section of a document or in XML sitemaps. And we've gone the XML sitemap route with a client recently. They operate in, I don't know, 20, 30 countries. I'm still waiting to see the results. I was wondering whether everyone else has played around or has been using it, and how's that going?
I think from a discovery point of view, going through the sitemap is the fastest way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you can actually use the fetch Google bot and fetch the sitemap.xml and submit to the to recrawl and see if you can speed up that process.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see. But when did you implement it? Like last week or this week?
Yeah, it's been implemented a couple of weeks ago, but there were problems because it was not implemented by us, but by a third-party agency, and how it goes. So we're in the process of getting it right.
One thing I wanted to add just about content, just to wrap it up, at least on my end, is just remember, people are people. It doesn't matter where you live. Understanding their nuances, understanding the culture is all part of putting it together. And the one thing that's across the board, and I don't care what country, what culture, it's be relevant, period. Be relevant and, have a campaign, have a plan and all of that. But as long as you're relevant, I think you've at least gotten 75% of the battle.
Be relevant or Google will slap you.
Right. Exactamente.
It's like it usually is in SEO. A lot of stuff is just common sense, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Most of what we do is
to us.
Actually.
To us, yeah. So.
Yeah. So I know you've used href lang. You found it best to kind of include it in your sitemap, correct?
Well, it's from just both ways works. The same. It works perfectly, but from a discovery point of view, to make it more, to apply it on all your site in a timely manner is going through the sitemap way, and it's way easier
right.
than building.
You don't have to mess around in the code in your site. You just have to add it.
You add code, that means it's slower, more lines, and all that. Yeah.
And also, it's like the reason you have a sitemap is for discovery. So if you want to move that along, putting it in the sitemap is going to move that along. Yeah. I think when you do that kind of stuff too, Google gets a little nosier about that stuff that it discovers in there.
Yeah. This is something new.
That's been my experience anyhow. It's like the old horse, lead it to the water, eventually it'll drink.
Yeah.
And I think there one important point is that we all might know, but maybe not everybody listening or watching this at a later point, is that this whole href lang thing, all it does it swaps the URL in the search results. It does not make a different
in rankings.
It doesn't change rankings or help you in rankings. It's just that when, for example, in Germany, a Swiss page shows up to a German searcher because it has lots of page rank and it's an important page and so on, they will just swap the URL in the SERPs to the corresponding German page for that searcher. That's all it does. Yeah. So it's super helpful, but it doesn't help you to rank better in the strict sense.
Right. It doesn't help. It isn't a signal for the ranking, is what you mean.
It's a kind of misconception right now. They're thinking about the href lang, that if you implement it, that means you're gonna increase ranking in that specific region, which is
it's a fix to problems people have been having for a long time, and I think it's important and it's a great thing. But it's a help. It helps with a specific problem, nothing more than that.
Okay. Geez, thank God this hour is up. This is not one of my favorite subjects. I don't know a lot about it. I guess I should have. I haven't been able to keep this going as well as I normally do. I guess I'll have to learn more about this stuff, Steve?
Unfortunately, yeah, because we're becoming more of a global world again, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, well, for me and Steve and the rest of you, I guess that's it for today. Not a lot, and there's no more questions, eh? Didn't receive any in the chat or on Twitter or anything?
That was it.
No one was watching, I bet.
We tried.
Once again, if you're, yeah. If you think that we could be on a better time, I'm definitely like to know, because that's one of my theories, is that maybe this isn't the best time to be doing this. Anyhow, as I like to say, for Doc Sheldon, Gabriella, Jonathan, Sante, Steve, and Wiss, see you later, folks, and go make lots of money.